you shall witness when Babylon fall. All you shall witness when Babylon fall. All you shall witness when Babylon fall.
Shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome. So, I am going to do today a very short seminar. It's not going to be too long. And what I would like to talk about today in my seminar and lecture is what is dark matter in the universe and what it actually means. Now, I know that we live in a world right now where we're told that there are dichotomies, dualities, and some refer to them as, the term, I guess, polarities. So if we have dichotomies in our universe, in our world, polar opposites in pretty much everything, then, it got me thinking, and I thought that, well, obviously we know, for example, if there are positive forces, there are also negative forces, just like there is light and there is dark, darkness. We have the powers of light versus the powers of darkness. So, having said that, for example, if we have, the positive angels, they refer to as the good angels, but that term, if you really understand the term good, it's probably not the word you really want to use in a positive sense, because if you do enough research on the word good, you will discover, especially in foreign languages, that the word good and evil are essentially one and the same. So, having said that, I'd like to refer to the angels of, the positive angels or positive forces as angels of light. So we have angels of light, and then there's also angels of darkness. So if there are archangels, then I thought to myself, then the archons, at least what we're told by some of these folks out here, especially, white folks. So if there are archons, and we're told that, well, these archons, they are the ones that are pretty much running things, and that didn't really make sense to me if you have archons, because if you look at the word archon, the root of that is arch, you get the word archangel, so that wouldn't make sense. I mean, why would the angels of light be also known as archons, or they all would share both the angels of light and the angels of darkness would share the same, I guess, the same ranking, in terms of the hierarchy. So it didn't make a lot of sense to me, and I wondered about that. So at any rate, based on my research, my theory is that there is another force of angels that also has a seat on this planet, and I think that force of angels are the fallen angels, but there's also another name for them, and the name for those angels are not, in my theory, I don't think they're archons based on my recent research. I think they are the opposite of archons. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and how that's relative to dark matter. So let's get started. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, well, how do we know that dark matter exists in the universe? And where would we find that information? Well, you would be really surprised that you really don't have to look that far, and you certainly don't have to read magazines, science magazines like Omni, to really find more about this information. It actually stems from the writings of, our ancestors. And it can be found it's actually mentioned a couple of times in the scriptures. So one of the verses that I would like to discuss is Nehemiah, in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 58. So let's take a look. So when we look in the book of Nehemiah chapter 758, so I'm just going to read it here. It says, the children of Yala, the children of Darkon, and the children of Giddel. So you have to ask yourself the question, well, who are these children? And in order to find out, the word that I would really like to focus on is this word, Darkon. So if we look that word up here, and click on the concordance, so it tells us that the word Darkon means scatterer. So not a lot of information there, but this is where understanding the Western Shemitic language in terms of, first of all, the language of our people being a root-based language, you can discern a little, many things, but if you go a little deeper based on the root of this word, you will, see something very interesting, is that this word actually is the same word as dragon. And I will show you how I know this. First of all, you can just look at the word if you understand the Western Shemitic roots. In order to comprehend what I'm saying here is that you have to look at the letter K, because the letter K shares the same sound as the letter G. It is in the same sound family. And that's how you know. And remember, being ancient Hebrew being a consonantal language, if you focus on the consonants here, then you will see that it shares the same root as the word dragon. One of the other things that's very interesting is, notice they say the word scatterer, and we're going to get, that is actually very important, and we're going to, I think you'll be able to ascertain why they use that word scatterer here as well. But back to why this is really relevant in terms of dark energy is that, like I had mentioned, is that the forces that we're dealing with in the universe right now, again, is the power of light versus the power of darkness. What's interesting is this word is not mentioned just, a couple of times in the writings of our people. It's also, this word in particular is mentioned also in the book of Ezra, but the word has been hidden in the writings of our people, and it's actually mentioned throughout our scriptures. It's mentioned several times throughout the scriptures. If you are studying your Shemitic roots and you're studying the language of our people, then you'll know easily where this word can be found also in the writings of our people, because it's mentioned several times throughout, the scriptures. And how would you be able to find out what the other word is that they use to really hide the Darkons, the word itself, in the writings of our people? Well, think about it. If you know that the root of the word is dark, then there's another word that's mentioned quite often, and that word would be darkness. So if you look that word up here, as you can see how many times that's mentioned, well over 100 times throughout the scriptures, because the word is just a play on the word for Darkons. same word. And so that's how you know that these darkons were very prevalent in the writings of our people, and our people, obviously documented them here. And that's why you see it so many times in the writings of our people, but they only mention it under the word Darkon only a couple of times, twice, but it's mentioned obviously quite a few more times than that, but it was well hidden. And in terms of dark matter, you might hear in the world of physics, they talk about dark energy and dark matter in the universe. And, according to people in physics, they say that 85% roughly of the universe consists of, dark energy or dark matter. But the point is that I don't really believe that per se. I'm not a physicist or anything, but does dark matter really exist? Well, sure, because dark matter is relative to dark energy as well as negative energy. And one of the things that you need to comprehend is in the universe that we live in, as well as the world, there are people that emit, and when I say emit, I'm referring to the word emit with an E, not emit or omit with an O, but we can go even further and say rather emanate negative energy, as well as people that emanate positive energy. And one of the things that I would recommend is to encompass yourself around people that emanate positive energy rather than negative energy. And so, that would obviously be, if you're one of our people, you want to spend more time with, our brothers and sisters, and again, our people that, emanate the positive energy. And that's really important, rather than spend time with people that emanate the negative energy. And that typically would be, for example, which I know is challenging, because I know that those people many of them happen to be our enemies, and let's face it, we are surrounded by them. So do the best you can to avoid them like the plague. But I know that can be hard at times, dealing with the society and world that we live in. But again, just spend more time with our brothers and sisters is my recommendation, is, to be around that positive life force and energy that we need as children of the Creator. So to further elaborate on this subject matter, I've done some research and located a paper that discusses, in the world of physics, Darkon fluid. And it says here, a model for the dark sector of the universe. So I'm not going to go any further and read the paper, because that's, I want to keep this short. I don't want this video to go too long. But also, I've done some further research and located an article that discusses, could dark matter spawn shadow life? And that's really interesting. So let's focus on this word here. If you look at this word shadow, one of the things I find is very interesting about that in our language is that word shadow is the Hebrew or Shemitic word zalah, which means shade. And if you look at the word, in terms of the meaning of the word here in our language, it says shadow, shade, symbolic of transitoriness of life. Essentially, that means to cross over, that word, transitoriness. So It also discusses here that it happens, it says to be or become dark, grow dark, uh, shadowing, and so on. And one of the other things, if you look very closely at this word, it is a word play for the same word here. If you read this word in Hebrew, zalal, the way our people would read it from right to left, you get the word sata. And shade essentially is that same word. Um, they tend to hide words that, let's say, should be pronounced with an S. They replace the S with the SH. So, and that's obviously to hide the information. They're not going to say sod because you would figure it out too quickly understanding the root of the word if it was pronounced with an S. So that's how you know that the word essentially is the same word as sata. And again, that D sound shares the same sound family as the T sound. So I'm not going to spend too much time, to go into that a little bit, any further. I think you get it. So back to this article, though, I think it's very interesting that it discusses the fact that it could spawn shadow life because it kind of helps you to gain understanding that this so-called dark matter is more than just matter they refer to in the universe. It is an entity. And if you understand anything about this word shadow, the root of the word that I've already shown you is the word shade, and shade is just another word for spirit. So they are referring to spirit entities. So that's really important to understand here. So to stay on topic, one of the things I also would like to discuss and continue to talk about here is this word Darkon, and the fact that it derives also from the word dragon. So to understand who are these Darkons, or the descendants of the Darkons, we need to understand what that word dragon, in terms of the word dragon, what they're referring to. And they're referring to essentially the serpent seed, and the descendants of the serpent, or what they like to refer to as dragon. And so just to prove to you that the word Darkon is synonymous with the word dragon, if we go into the lexicon here, you'll see here that in the lexicon it gives us the word in Hebrew for Darkon. And as you can see here, it says it means dragon. So actually I'm going to enlarge that for you a little bit. And there it is. And it says here, its figure was used as a military ensign of the Roman cohorts. And it also goes on to say, in the Talmud, it is considered an emblem of idolatry. So that about sums it up there. And one of the other things I wanted to mention is really shouldn't be any irony here that they told you that the word Darkon means scatterer, because if you think about it, who invaded our lands and scattered our people? And if we go to look at that word, scatter, what I find very interesting here is this word right here, the word they give you for scattering is zula. And the root of that word, which is zul, has, it's very interesting, it shares the same Shemitic root as the other word I just showed you not too long ago for, it was spelled with a TS, the word for shade, which is zalal. This is the same, essentially the same word, because if you are studying Hebrew, you understand that the word, or rather the letter Z as well as the letter TS are used interchangeably because they have the same sound, the same Z sound. And one of the other things I wanted to point out is they talk about all of this in their films. You remember the movie The Fifth Element?
Zork's office?
I told you I do not want to be disturbed.
I know, you don't want to be disturbed except if it's Mr. Shadow, and it's Mr. Shadow on the line.
It's me again.
Zog here.
Am I disturbing you?
No. Just... Where are you?
Not far now.
Good.
How are the stones?
Fine. Just fine. I'll have the 4 stones that you asked for any time now, but it wasn't easy. My costs have tripled.
Money is of no importance. I want the stones.
Here. I'll see to the person.
Will be among you soon.
And that concludes my seminar for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I also would like to give a warm shout out to all my brothers and sisters in the Hebrew community for your donations in support of my research. Thank you so much once again, and may the Most High continue to awaken the Shemitic mind within. Shalom.
Try to tell the world so far. Masters of the people so far. And I hear the angel with the 7 seals. Babylon, your throne gone down. Babylon, your throne gone down.
What you say? What you talking about?
I say fly away home to Zion, fly. Try to tell the world so far. Masters of the people so far.